All right, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Dashboard Dojo. My name is David Carnes. I'm really happy to have you with us today. Today, we're going to talk about Service Cloud reporting in Salesforce. So I know, the name Salesforce stuck. I think probably 15 years ago, Salesforce might have even dropped the word sales from its name. Dell dropped the word computer. Apple, I think, dropped the word computer at some point. Salesforce could have dropped the word sales from its name because it's had service functionality as long as I've worked in Salesforce, which is about 17 years. But today we're going to focus on Service Cloud reporting. Again, so glad you could join us. So we'll do quick introductions. We'll dive into just Service Cloud topics, and I'll show some stuff in the system. We'll talk about upcoming OpFocus events and training. And then upcoming Dōjō topics. I've thought to add 3 more. Kyle, I'll have to get you the copy for them to put them on the website or to get the Zoom registration set up. But in preparing for today and in preparing for the Sales Cloud reporting Dōjō a month ago, I realized that you can't fit it all in an hour. And invariably, I start with the basics and plumbing, and I really want to get to the advanced stuff. So what I thought in the months of April and May is to add another sales reporting session, and so in April, and in another service reporting session in May, just because I have more content than I can fit in an hour. And I'm sure you've got lots of questions. So we'll also have some time for Q&A. During the session, if you want to throw a question in chat, Kyle will monitor it. I'll try to monitor it as well. All right, so who am I? Again, my name is David Carnes. I'm the chairman and chief evangelist of OpFocus. We're a longtime Salesforce partner. So I started the company in 2006. I quit my job, bought a laptop for $1,000 and got started. And it was great. We just work with SaaS companies to optimize their revenue operations. So very, very focused on Salesforce and the surrounding tech stack around Salesforce. I've been honored to be part of the Salesforce MVP program. Just found out, I think last week, that I'm part of it for another year. I like to share a photo or something about myself. Dug up an old photo from the last millennium. Of me whitewater rafting in New Zealand. I don't know if you can see the photo well, but that's me waving. So I guess I was a little nutty that I'm the only one that's not hunkered down. So, well, how times have changed. All right. So also really happy to have Kyle joining us again to host. Thank you, Kyle, for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, great. So I think I'd shared over time where this idea of Dōjō came from. I lived in Japan for almost 3 years, and I've been to Japan many, many times, and just really appreciated the way that martial arts are taught, and martial arts it's a lifelong learning. We're all at different levels with our reports and dashboards. We all have things to learn. Victor, who's on the call today, asked a great question the other day, and it's so much fun thinking about these questions because this is how you learn, is digging in to questions. I want to point out, so we've had the Dōjō running for about 1.5 years, and we have lots and lots of recordings. So it must be 25 hours of recordings on the Dōjō site now. So thank you, Kyle, for putting that link in the chat. All right, so today we're going to first talk about this new beta feature, and I want to talk about it first because when we go to create some reports, you're going to see the new beta feature and you'll probably be like, wait, my system doesn't look like that. So I'm excited to share sort of the future where Salesforce reporting, that first step on report types and how reports are going to be organized, how that looks. Then we're going to dive into the plumbing of service reporting, talk about some things that you need to do service reporting. We'll talk about case report types. We'll dive into some useful stuff. We'll take a look at Salesforce's pre-configured Service Cloud dashboards. And then finally, just talk about some KPIs. And I'm really interested in your feedback on this. And I think, today we'll set the foundation. We'll get another date scheduled to focus on Service Cloud reporting. And that'll be for the next session. We'll just go even a little bit deeper on this stuff. All right, so let's talk about report types beta. And so this is a brand new feature. I had to submit a case to get this enabled. And right now, the product manager is only allowing it to be enabled in sandboxes. So I might have gotten a special dispensation to have it in my dev org. But there was a bunch of back and forth to get that to happen. So once you submit the case and you provide the org ID of the sandbox that you want this enabled in, then Salesforce responds and says it's enabled. Then a checkbox appears in setup, and we can see the checkbox here just around where the other betas appear. So other betas don't require a support case, only sort of special ones or early ones like this. This is still pretty early on in this beta where it's you have to submit the support case. But then once it turns on, once you have it turned on, then basically the first step of creating a new report looks different. So let's actually go take a look at this. So if we look behind the scenes, under setup, so a sysadmin can do this for you if you're not a sysadmin. Under setup, platform tools, feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, report and dashboard settings, we can see the couple of betas. So for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, as with the move to Lightning, as Salesforce has introduced new reporting features, they've often appeared as a beta checkbox to enable here first. And then when they become generally available, they often, the checkbox just goes away. So one of them that is available now that's really cool, and I think it's come a long way, is the ability to edit inline edit reports. So that's when you go to run a report, whether it's saved or not, you can inline edit multiple records, multiple fields for many data types, not all data types, but that one's pretty cool. So here's the one here to enable the recommended report types. So once that's turned on, when we go to build a new report, and I'll just start this step over again. So literally nothing up my sleeve. I click the new report button and my first step. So this has long been a problem. It's really the most confusing step when creating a report. And once you lock and load, you're kind of stuck on this trajectory. Whatever you pick here, it's really the most important decision you make in reporting. But I thought to show it off. So what we have here is the same categories you're used to on the left. And then you have across the top a similar search feature that we've had before. Below that, you have a list of recently used report types, and you can see when you use them. And you can keep scrolling to the right. So I don't know how many that is, but it looks like 7 or 8 that it shows. Then you have a list of all your report types, and they've added one piece of information that could be useful, which is the category, whether it's standard or custom. Now, it's interesting when you see words like category here, because I've always thought of these as report type categories. So the word category used again is confusing a little bit, but this is just whether it's a standard or a custom report type. And that's actually helpful to know. Many of us have lots and lots of reports in our orgs, and some are standard, many are custom, and just understanding that. Well, they didn't stop here. There's one extra feature that I really like about this new the recommended report types is that we can step in here. And so there's actually 2 things here. One is they brought a feature that has been in Classic for years, but wasn't brought over to Lightning until now, which is the ability to hide report types. So let me actually hide one here. If you don't use solutions, we could come over here and let me get the chat window out of the way, and I can literally hide that report type. So I can do that as a sysadmin. No other users in our system will be able to see and therefore unable to use that report type. And you can literally hide modules that you're not using to make it less confusing for your end users. There is a new category on the left where you can see your hidden report types. You can see I've hidden some other ones over time here. So if I go back under the customer support reports, another thing that we have is the ability to see the details. And this is a really important feature as part of this new recommended report types, that you can see the name, you can see that it's standard. We can also start a report and hide the report. We can see reports that we've created, that each of us have individually created using this report type. Down below, you can see all the objects. And this is really our first glimpse ever into what are all the objects that are available here. So it's kind of amazing realizing just how many objects are available in each of these standard report types. There's a load of them. And then down below, we can see that there are 138 fields available, and I can go hunt for specific fields. So this feature, I think, even though that it's kind of buried in the bottom right corner, will be really useful to anybody who's wondering, like, does this report type give me duration? So duration is a special field that's available on certain report types for cases. It's not available on this report type, but if I come in here and look at the case life cycle, I'll see that duration is a field that I can take advantage of. I can scroll down here and search. So it's just kind of an interesting overhaul. Hopefully it'll be interesting to hear your feedback on this. Looks like Howard said, searching for fields this way, that's excellent. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm excited about this, but just wanted to, so in case you guys aren't disoriented, if I'm not creating a report, you see the new report type selector. That's called recommended report types. It's a beta. Look for it to become generally available later this year. All right, so let's dive into our topic for today, which is what do we need? Just service reporting. And really is a good foundation. It's helpful to understand what we need for this. And first and foremost, forget about systems for a moment. It's very important to understand your company's service level agreements, SLAs, as we call them. And over the years as a consulting firm, we've worked with a lot of organizations to set up Service Cloud. That's really one of the most important discussions that we have. So how mature are your SLAs? Are they going to change in the next few months? Some organizations, it's a total mess. Every customer is a special snowflake. And that makes it very hard to have a rigid support process. But anyway, if you're not sure what I'm talking about and you're in charge of Service Cloud reporting, I would go ask, the head of your service organization, or could even be somebody in finance, what are our service level agreements? And this is contract level stuff that you are obligated to, to adhere to. And a lot of times that dictates the process and that dictates some of the reporting that we need to do. So at a next level, I think it's really important to understand your statuses. They should be very clear. And, as an example here, this is probably the most simple example I can come up with, where a new status is new and nobody's touched it. So somebody submitted it, however they submitted it, whether it's by telepathy or ESP, smoke signals, they're like tapping on drums or something, whether it's coming in from a community, whether it's coming in from social media, wherever it's coming from, a new case is new, and that just means it hasn't been worked yet. When somebody on the support team picks it up, we'll often say that it's researching. That means somebody owns it and they're working it. Those two top statuses, the ball is in our court. Let's say that we're the service provider, we're providing support for whatever our product is. The ball's in our court now. And occasionally we throw the ball back over to the customer's court and we will change the status to something like awaiting customer action. Oh, great, Howard, semaphore case. That's great. Yeah. A lot of times cases sort of get batted back and forth, researching awaited customer action, researching awaited customer action. So this is a little bit different than a sales process where your stages may be more linear and you may never allow an opportunity stage to go backwards. Where in support, for case statuses, it's more common to have this sort of ball and court back and forth. You think of somebody lobbing a tennis ball over the net and it's over on the customer side, and then they lob it back and it's researching. Now from there, it could go to one of many escalated statuses. So you could have escalated to engineering, escalated to management, stuff like that. I've just got one here. And you may have one or more closed statuses, such as solution delivered, solution accepted. And this again is driven by your service level agreements, whether when the customer says that they've accepted it, like when does the clock stop? One other thing to note that's really important when defining your case statuses is to make sure that you mark the ones that are closed correctly. And this is going to drive filtering, much like with opportunity stages. We have a similar, which ones are closed, and it's often won, lost, and perhaps dead, which drives filtering that you can use. So there's a field on cases called, it's a system generated formula. It's a checkbox on closed or open, and you can use those for filters, and they're just driven by these case statuses and whether things are checked or not. That's much, much safer to use in a filter than actual case status names. Because case status names change. So the next time you have a new head of support, they may come in with their own methodology and your filters could all be blown up for the 1,000 reports that you created, unless you filter off of these open and closed special fields. All right. So, so Victor asked the question, is there a useful resource today for useful fields by object to filter on that may not appear? So this is it, Victor. This is me trying to fight the good fight and suggest useful fields. I think this would be a really good blog article. I could sit down and just go through and just point out fields. So I think you've inspired me to do that. So thank you for suggesting that. So another concept that's really important in service reporting is just understanding the data model. And it's probably a little more easy to understand accounts and cases, but when you start wading into deeper waters with emails and activities and case comments, and then you start layering on things like knowledge, surveys, entitlements, which are often thought of as part of the service cloud functionality, understanding the data model is really valuable. I think, as always, having buy-in from management on the support process is essential foundation for reporting. There are key fields. I've always said that service like cases are very dashboardable, which is sort of a funny way to describe them. But cases have so many pick lists on them. You've got type, you've got reason, you've got origin, you might have substatus. And that makes it very, very, easy to put on a dashboard, very easy to do trending based on these key fields. So there are a handful of fields that come out of the box. You may also add custom fields. You might be interested in a region. You might be interested in some other measurement related to the service that you provide. There are those special fields that Victor was asking about. Age is one of them. You might create a service, a case report that's on all open cases and include the age column. And it literally is the age and days since that each of the cases was created. There are those two special fields that I mentioned, open and closed. I use them all the time in filters. There's another special field for cases called escalated, and that field is triggered if you use the case escalation feature. I believe it's possible to trigger that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming it's possible with Flow. So if you wrote, instead of using the older case escalation functionality, I'm believing that you can use a Flow to trigger that, and that's something I could double check as well. On the case lifecycle reports, there is a field called duration, which can be helpful. And so you can see some of them here in this screenshot in the middle. Just these are fields that you can throw onto the report. You can filter by them. You can sum them. There's just interesting things you can do. So the last thing I'd say we need for Service Cloud reporting, we need a daily ritual. So we need our sales reps, not our sales reps, our support agents, to monitor their pile of open cases, to monitor if we use queues. We need them to monitor queues and essentially accept cases to work. And we need them to just be very rigorous about keeping these key fields updated daily. All right, so that's what we need to do service reporting. Why don't we dive right in to the standard case report types? So there's the one called cases, and I think I use this one by far the most. This is great. It's got case status. You can do agent workload. You can do trending on open and close date. There's just a bunch of analysis we can do with just that very, very basic case report type. What's nice about that is it comes with pre-built connector to the contact object, the pre-built connector to the account object, and those are not based on equijoins. So if there are no contacts, we can still see the cases. We can see that account information there. With case lifecycle, this report type introduces a bunch of historical fields, and these can be shown as columns. These can be grouped. These can also be used in filters. This introduces that field called duration, which can be helpful in looking to report without any customization in your system, looking to report on, how long is it taking for cases to move through the life cycle. There's another feature which needs to be enabled. It's called case history. And this is tied to field history tracking. So this is enabled and set up, and we specify which field changes to track. I think a lot of us by default, when we go set up case history, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, I think the default is that you sort of look to track every single field. And the reality is that there are a lot of fields that just don't change, right? So what type of case is it? It's that type of case. And we don't really care about the case change change there. But if it's a priority field, we care about that. A status field, we care about that. An owner field, we care about those changes. So some special features with the history, and this is across all the objects. If you enable field history tracking on an object, these all work the same, that you have a from and a to status, essentially. So basically what you have is an old value and a new value. So I didn't refer to it exactly correctly there, but it was the from value and the to value. And then you have the ability to do some interesting filters with that and do some interesting combinations looking through your history. So I do want to point out that there is a feature called entitlements. Actually, you know what? Why don't we come up for air for a second, Kyle? I've once again forgotten the polls. I'm really curious, guys. I should have thrown, maybe you could throw the first poll. And again, I'm sorry that I didn't get you.
Who currently uses Service Cloud?
Yes, yep. So we're going to do 2 polls back to back. I'm just curious, who among you currently uses Service Cloud in their org? And you can be honest if you're just here to listen to me blather on. Oh, that's great. We had one taker for my. All right, great. So it looks like the majority use it, or you're thinking about it. You know, we see a lot of organizations also take advantage of like a Zendesk or another system, and there are some level of integration with Salesforce that cases might be visible in the system or might be you know, integrated with the system. So we may have a different set of reporting needs in those cases, but it looks like predominantly everybody on the call today uses it, which is great. Kyle, do you want to share the results on that?
Yes, I had shared them.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Great. Why don't we do the next poll? And this has to do with report types. And I'm curious about which report types, since most everybody is using Service Cloud. So I've talked about a few of them here: cases, case lifecycle, and are you using some of these other ones? Very cool. All right, this is great. So we have at least one person doing entitlements, and this is a small percentage of, so entitlements has some interesting power to it. This was created for one of the world's largest software companies. Originally, this feature, entitlements, we don't see it used all that often, but it has a very specific use case. Looks like 2 of you are using cases with historical trending. So maybe you could throw into the comments how you're using cases with historical trending. That would be interesting. And it looks like a few of you are also using knowledge. So Kyle, you've already shared that, it seems like.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing all this. This is really interesting. With entitlement, so I enabled entitlement in this org where I took the screenshot in the middle here, and it added 3 report types just by adding entitlements. It added cases with milestones, service contract with contract line items, and then also service contracts with entitlements. So those 3 only appear if you're using the entitlements feature. We also have cases with historical trending, and I'll talk about that in a moment. That's where the arrows are related to. So solutions, we already hit it earlier. That's old. And then you can see these 3 here that have equal signs. These are equijoins in the system. And we've talked about these before when we talked about report types. We have to be really careful because we were so excited. We want to see cases, and we assume that we'll see cases that don't have assets. That's not true. These ones that are out of the box with cases with assets, those are equal joins. That's why I put the equals there. So you'll only ever see a case if it has an asset. Same with cases with solutions, same with cases with contact roles. I believe if we enable case teams, we might also see a standard report type for that, but just to mention that. All right, so let's dig into 2 of these. So case history and cases with historical trending. So the case field history I mentioned earlier, if you were to go under setup, Object Manager, go under Fields and Relationships. There's a button way over on the right. Again, this is under Object Manager. So we click the button and then we select which fields are tracked for field history. So you first have to enable it. There's a checkbox to turn it on. And then from that moment on, logging begins. So your data is now logged for all the changes going forward. If you think you might need this a month from now or a quarter from now, you might turn it on now. There is an impact to storage when you turn on logging. you can select up to 20 fields for logging. So I would select any field whose change is significant to you. So the case origin is probably not a good one. I don't think that changes. Even the case reason may or may not change, but status is a good one. Priority is a good one. Maybe even type, whatever you think might change. Case owner would be a good one. And then when you go to report on case history, over on the right-hand side, I've got a screenshot of some of the special fields that are available. So back to Victor's question, we have when was the edit made, who made it, what was the record, the parent ID, the record that this change was related to, which field or event was the change made to, such as the owner field, and what's the old value and the new value. So I find that really nice to just turn on and let it run. This is something we can also expose in a related list on the case layout. All right, so let's also turn on historical trending. So this is one of those features that it's not on until you turn it on. This has been here for more than a decade. And this allows you to create what changed since last week type reports, or what changed since last month. For all the cases that were a priority one a week ago or a month ago, where are they now? Is sort of a nice thing you can do with this. So the first thing you do is you turn it on. So we do that under, we've got the #1 screenshot up in the top right. So we go under setup, feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, historical trending. You go to the case object, check a box to enable it. You can see that here in the second screenshot. And then again, you pick which fields you want to track. So priority would be a good one, status, escalation date, things that are changing. Over on the right-hand side, we can see that as soon as we enable this and save it in setup, then a new report type appears. And I really like this. I'm not well set up for it. I turned it on at about 4 this morning. If I turned it on yesterday, we could have seen red or green, some of the changes today. The one thing that isn't great for support with historical trending, so this is available on up to 3 standard objects and up to 3 custom objects. It's not great for cases because it doesn't handle pick lists the same. A pick list change is green either way. So if it goes backwards, it still shows as green, but as long as you understand that and just identify that as a change, that's okay. So just to show you in the system, if I go to create a new report, and I'll go ahead and just create with that cases with historical trending, I'll start the report. And we did a video, we did a Dōjō just on historical trending. So there's a video recorded on the site, on the Dashboard Dōjō site, if you're not familiar with this. But you can select up to 5 snapshot dates. So the default is yesterday, but I could select 7 days ago or 1 month ago. And we have a set of columns that we can add that are sort of core columns, and then each of the fields that you've enabled historically. So what I'll typically do is I'll do like, what's the historical status? I'll add that, and then I'll add the current status right next to it. So the historical on the left, the current on the right. And we have 2 snapshot dates. So I have 2 columns here. One is what was the value a month ago, what was the value yesterday, and what's the value today. And then we can show the value of the change. We can also format the change, not on pick lists. I think they've hidden it because it didn't work correctly, but we can at least show the change, that there is a change. So this is cases with historical trending. If I were the one whose job it was to know for what's going on with our priority 1 cases, then I would probably take advantage of this and have this available before a weekly case review meeting. All right, so that's historical trending on cases. Just to shift gears, and it looks like there might be one question. So will the field selection brings the particular column of the report separately? Will the field selection brings? So Cal, I'm not sure that I understand your question. Will the field selection bring the particular column of the report separately? I think if you're talking about the case history, if you select one of the fields to track with case history, you still need to add it to the report. But essentially, it's now available. It'll be logged from that moment that you enable it. So not sure if I answered that correctly. Oh, right. So let's talk about report types. So this clearly plays an important role. And what we're talking about right now is custom report types. So we saw the standard report types. There was just this very small list of things that we can report on. Well, there are many more objects that are available through custom report types. And we did a whole session on custom report types last year, and that's recorded if you're not familiar with this. So this is the most important topic in reporting, in my opinion. Which report type you pick is critical, and understanding what custom report types are available. So there are many more objects available, like asset actions and assets and things like this, that you could just report on that thing. And the only way to report on that thing is to create a custom report type first. I have a screenshot here in the right showing cases with comments. And actually what we can see here is I've created a custom report type on the primary object cases. And then I can see when I add the B object, all the different child objects of cases. So we have case comments, emails, case feed that's related to chatter, surveys, documents related to the content module, case teams, we can see activities. So there's a lot here if you wanted to create a report on cases with comments and just see, like, you know, are people using comments and all that. We can see that here. If we come under setup, report types, I've already created this one, cases with comments. And just to show it to you, so under setup, feature settings, analytics, reports, and dashboards, it's either a sysadmin or somebody who's been given permission can create one of these custom report types. And we can see in here, if we go edit the relationship, that we've created this with a primary object of cases and case comments as the secondary object. And we set this to be A records may or may not have related B records. And this is what this diagram shows. So whether or not there are comments, I still want to see the case on this particular, any reports created by this. All right, so that's report types and why custom report types are still really important to us.
We got a question from Jean Say, who said they're seeing some statuses in green and they're curious what that means. So, like clothes could be in green or black.
Yep, and so when you're using the historical trending, John Say, that just means that that field has changed. So, and specifically with pick lists, it's just that it changed. The way this used to work in Classic, I believe, was that if it changed positively, it was green, and if it changed negatively, it was red. I think in Lightning, it doesn't work quite that way. I think any change will show up as green. So that's what that means. All right, I do want to point out, so you've probably heard me talk about custom report types before. Specifically deluxe custom report types. Evan Ponter, who writes on a blog, he and a gentleman, Aaron Creer, very active in the Salesforce community. They write on a blog called reportforce.blog. Evan has written quite a bit about deluxe report types. And this can be really useful in Service Cloud reporting. So the thought here is you create a custom report type on the lowest level object. And then you use this thing over on the right, and this is very buried, but if you edit the layout of your custom report type, way over on the right, you can add fields related via lookup, and you can add fields from up to 60 objects. You can add fields from up to 5 levels above the object that you're on. So Kyle, I think I put up at the top of the chat the link to this blog article, but in case it's helpful to anyone, I'm just going to show you an example of this and why I think this is useful for service reporting. We'll create a custom report type on email with case info. So we're going to pick the lowest level object, in this case, email. And then from there, we'll add fields related via lookup and pull in the case. We might also pull in contact information as well. So if we come into our system under report types, and it looks like I've already, oh, no, I didn't create one for email yet. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're creating a new custom report type. Again, I'm under setup, feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, report types. You can see this list. This list gets longer with every release. There are objects in here you've never heard of. With deluxe report types, this idea, we want to choose the lowest level object, and we're essentially flattening the database by doing this. So I'm going to pick email messages, and I'm going to call this emails, and we'll call this deluxe so that we know what it is. Let's see if I can spell it correctly. And we are given the opportunity to choose which category we'll put it in. So I'm going to put this into customer support reports. And the last choice when you're first creating a report type is to choose the deployment status. If you make it in development, then only admins can see it. If you make it deployed, then other users can see it and thereby create reports on it. So I'll go ahead and make it deployed. Now what we see is we've created a report type on the email object. And what we're not going to do here is relate this to another object, but instead, we're going to go right back to, we're going to save this. We're going to go right back to the main page of emails, the custom report type. And down at the bottom here, we see fields available for reports. And I'll go ahead and edit the layout. And if we dig into here, what we see is this whole pile of fields. And what I could do is I could create, I might create two new sections here. I'll create one called assets, and I'll create a second one called cases. And we can pull in fields from these other objects and use them in our reports. So essentially, we're inverting the way reports are done. We're starting with the lowest level object, not starting with the higher level object. Go to a low level object, and based on lookups from that object, we're pulling in other fields. So the way that this works over here is to use add fields related via lookup, and we can go grab the parent case. And we can even go grab the parent case assets. So maybe I'll grab the asset field, and then I'll view related fields such as, the asset name, and maybe the install date of the asset, and how about the serial number, the status, and I think there was a purchase date. So let's add that. I'm going to click OK. So you see all these fields with these magnifying glasses have been added. And what I can do is I can literally just come in here, and I'm going to just grab a block of them, and I could order them better. And what we can also do with this is we can relabel any of the columns. We can also set them by default. If you use this add fields related via lookup, I would suggest that you clean up all the labels, because they're going to become very long. It's basically showing you the starting object, the object we went through, and then the object we ended up at. So the names are all going to be very long. But let me click OK on that. And I'm going to do the same thing, add fields related via lookup on the parent case. And why don't we grab, the case origin and the case number. And then, I could pick a couple more fields here, like the priority and the status and the type and the subject. Okay, great. So I've added a bunch of those, and I could come in here and again, I created a section earlier, so I can just throw these in that new section. And let's just see how this works. So I've only added a few, and you can add fields from 60 objects. I think you can have a total of 1,000 fields that you add this way, a total of 1,000 fields combined. That's a lot of fields, but let's go see this in action. So if I go back to the reports tab, create a new report now using that brand new report type that I created. So it's under customer support reports. Here it is here, the email deluxe. I'll start a report. And I didn't spend a lot of time on the columns. I should have made some of the email columns default. I should have relabeled some of these. But what we have essentially, if I expose the field picker here, is we have all the email fields available, and then those 6 asset fields and the 6 case fields that we added. So again, this is flattening the database. You report on the lowest level object, and then you can reach in. So it looks like case comments isn't available for this, but we could do this with knowledge articles. We could do this with other things and reach up through the data structure, pull fields down, and really expand our reporting capabilities. So I wanted to spend some time on this. So thank you, Victor, for sharing. Where has this trick been all my life? That's great. All right, so some other useful stuff, just expanding with this topic of report types, having more custom report types, such as accounts with or without cases. So you create the primary object of accounts and then have one of these left outer joins with or without cases. That could be helpful. You might want to report on all your customers and what each of the customers has for cases. I talked about the system generated fields already, so there's a bunch of them to take advantage of. We did a session recently in the Dōjō in January on reporting snapshots. Trending is probably one of the most important and one of the most useful things in Service Cloud reporting. A lot of times, your CFO, he or she wants to ensure that they're not wasting money and hiring new agents without need. And a great way to make the case is to show the trends of our support cases are going up, week to week, month to month. We really need more help here, because there probably is some, daily amount of cases that somebody can realistically work. A couple of other useful things. So dynamic dashboards, we talked about these. We talked about sales reporting. You've got the ability to add a change link. If in Enterprise Edition, you can have up to 5 of them. And this can allow a support manager to work with his or her agents and kind of quickly use the same dashboard for multiple agents that report to them. We also have dashboard filters, and we can have something like open dates. So if you're doing analysis on cases that are open this year, you could, or cases open all time, you could instantly filter by adding a dashboard filter on things like this week, this month, this quarter, and you can see this over here in action. Another really simple thing to take advantage of is case trending, and to do it in a very simple way. So year over year closed cases by month. I don't have a lot of data in this particular org, but you can see that I've got the month of January and I have 224 cases a year ago. And I don't know if our business has crashed or whatnot, but we only had 60 cases. So maybe our product's quality has just gone up so much. That's why we've had so few cases. I'm not really sure. And we have no cases in March, so maybe that's a problem. But I don't have a lot of sample data in this org. But the way that I did this is to group either by the close date or by the created date, and then to create a custom, a row level formula field on the same date. So if you're doing it based on created date or close date, create a row level formula directly on the report and then group that the second time. So you can see here in my example, I'm grouping the first close date and grouping it by calendar month and year. And then I'm grouping the second close date. This is my formula field, a row level formula. And I'm grouping that by year, and that gives you this type of trending. So you can see the seasonality on your report.
Victor mentioned that if you exceed the limit of 5, it will not let you deploy the change set.
Yeah. Exceeding the limit of 5, and he's talking about the dynamic dashboards, can cause problems. The next topic is embedded analytics. We saw this with sales reporting, such a valuable thing to be able to embed dashboards into the homepage so that when users first log into Salesforce, that's the first thing they see. Here we have a My Support KPIs, and this one is also a dynamic dashboard. You see the change link. And to add that to the page layout is literally dragging a component, a dashboard component. So you first build your dashboard, put it in a folder that's like a system folder, and then you can just add that to the homepage. And we did a Dōjō on embedded analytics in January. We've got the recording up on the site. All right, great. So where I thought to spend some more time is on the pre-configured Service Cloud dashboard. So Salesforce has a bunch of samples for Service Cloud reporting. This is a set of 4 dashboards available out in the App Exchange, and you can poach from them. There are some quirks to these, and I just thought to step into some of these topics. So if we come to the dashboard tab, I've already installed this from the App Exchange. If you are not sure how to do that, and if you have an admin in your environment, your org, they could install it for you. But basically, what it does is installs 4 dashboards, and I've cloned one and added one more. That's why I have 5. So I've got executive sponsor key metrics, service agent clean your room, key performance indicators, and then service manager key metrics. So let's go take a look at these, and let's look at some of the examples that Salesforce has given us. So clearly things like open cases make sense. Cases by priority makes sense. I feel like all of these could be trended. So to me, this is cases that are open currently by priority. Why not show me 52 weeks of open cases by priority, and that rightmost column gives you the, that same information, but you get, 51 other weeks of that information. We could do that with a reporting snapshot. Unassigned cases is a good one. This would be cases owned by queues. The concept of channels is important, like where did the case come from? So there's an out-of-the-box field called case origin. The more you can push people towards self-service, the lower your cost goes down. So many years ago, I saw a stat that said cases that are originated by phone cost many, many, many more times. And at the time, it was about $50 per case, whereas cases that come in by email might be $10 per case. Cases that come in from the web might be $1. Cases that come in from chat are even lower cost, because it costs to have somebody sitting there at a cube available with a headset on to answer the phone. So this, whatever your goals are for an organization, a lot of organizations, when we first walk in the door, they might have a very high email or phone case source. And the goal is to try to push people towards self-service, either from your website, or if you've implemented a community, we want people to self-service as much as possible. So doing trending on cases by channel makes sense. Cases by account, I don't know that this one's useful. There's just too many accounts in the system. Average resolution time, I think is a, interesting thing. Again, this is sample data, so the results aren't always as pretty. We've got escalated cases, closed cases. I think I probably wouldn't use this in its entirety. I'd probably break it up. I'd probably dig into using some of these underlying reports. But even with that, so if I dig into this called open cases, some of these in these dashboards, when you look at the filters, like this has open equals true. That's what I want. There are other examples that have the status, the case status, listing individual statuses. I would much rather see a filter that has open equals true or closed equals false, that kind of thing. So just to show you a couple of other things, so they've included a service manager key metrics. I've added 2 filters at the top of this one, but you can see a lightning table with teams open cases by priority. Again, if you have 1,000 open cases, this isn't that useful. You probably just show your high priority ones. We see open cases by priority and age. This one, I think it's grouped wrong. This is grouped by individual days, and you might want to group it by some other way that isn't individual day counts. So you might group it, ones that are, 10 to 50 days, over 50 days, below 10 days, maybe just so you don't have quite so many colors appearing in your list. Open cases by owner and priority. So that's kind of an interesting one. I would probably flip this around. I'd sort it differently and put the high priority ones at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see the high priority ones. Those are the most important ones. Whatever's most important to you, put that at the bottom, and then you can see it right off the 0. And it's much easier to eyeball that than to like hunt and peck and look across the top. I would probably sort this one differently, just reverse the sort order. And it actually, yeah. So I'd flip that around. Closed cases by owner. I would probably want to see this as like a vertical bar. The donut's hard. The other problem with the donut is it defaults to 6. So please always be careful when using donuts. It defaults to 6, and then it'll only show your 6 groupings, and then it'll stuff the other ones into something called other. So this average time to resolution, that's super valuable. I'm going to talk in a minute about, like how we might think about grouping all these metrics. So these are just good examples to start with. I'll dive into one that I created today. I cloned one of those and I just had some fun with it. My open cases by status, my top 7 aging priority 1 cases. my closed cases this month, my closed cases this year. You might have it by week and by month, or do it by quarter, and then see things like average days to resolve. For some reason, this is like 1,000 days. That's kind of ridiculous. But my average aging in open cases, and these are just things that we're monitoring for this person. We want to inspire them to move a little bit more quickly, try to maintain high quality service, but close the cases faster, because ultimately the customers are measuring us based on that. So this is an example of something we might set up for a support agent, but make it dynamic to allow us to use the change link here and set this up for, like, I don't remember if I set this up for Laura to have access. And I don't remember how much data that she has, but it's refreshing the dashboards, and it'll show these for Laura. So that's a dynamic dashboard there. So this has, I think, two other examples. One is the service agent clean your room. This is what I copied and cloned and modified to create that last thing that I showed you. But you can just see here different like looks at the data, and I might have little suggestions to tighten up each one of these. But I really like putting metrics in front of the sales reps or the service agents, just so that they know what we're monitoring, and they know what they need to focus on. I think there's one other example in this, which was, I think it was key performance indicators. And again, we've got, percentage of open cases escalated. That's kind of interesting. Percentage of cases resolved this quarter. It's not really clear, and you might put into the footer, is that based on cases that were open this quarter or just cases that were already open? So the concept of, like, are we starting with when the case was open or starting when the case is closed? That's important, important to clarify in the footers. All right, so this, clearly there's a bunch of stuff here. This is, digging into this, I thought we should probably do another session. Just, I'll call it service cloud reporting number 2, and just dig into some more specifics. But before we wrap up, I did want to share, just some ideas on KPIs. This is not an exhaustive list, but, for agents and for teams, knowing individual workloads is really important. Their average response times, the average time to close. We saw that on the my support agent dashboard. We might be interested in case comments. We might be interested in emails. To report on those, we'd need to create custom report types first. For the entire support organization, knowing how many cases are open, what's the case aging, how many are unassigned, what's the resolution by agent, the performance, what's their responsiveness when escalations occur. Something I want to focus on in the next session is ball and cord analysis. This was really important to me for that last software company I worked for 20 years ago. Just understanding, like, how much time, if a case was open for 3 months, how much time was open 1 month for us versus for the customer. Some ideas on things you could embed into page layouts, my caseload, just whatever I'm doing for cases. I already showed that example. Another example that I'll show on the next slide is case volume by create month and status, and you might embed that into the account layout. Please keep in mind the value of trending in case reporting, support reporting. So cases closed by month, cases by origin, case age at close by priority, on and on this list. So many things that you can trend with this, and we just want to set a goal, watch the trend. Are we getting toward that goal? We don't want reps overloaded. We do want them to be productive when we're dealing with Service Cloud reporting. Here's an example of an embedded report chart in an account layout. So you might want to show for your customers cases by create month and current status, and just show that history of cases and which ones are closed and which ones are open and that sort of thing directly on an account layout. So we've talked about a bunch of things today. I really think we've set the stage to do another session and see more examples. So we talked about the new beta feature called recommended report types. We talked about what do we need to do for service reporting. We talked about case report types, both standard and custom. I talked a little bit about useful stuff. We talked through the pre-configured Service Cloud dashboards, and we talked about some Service Cloud APIs. KPIs, not APIs. So we do have an event coming up next week. Is it next week or 2 weeks?
Next Thursday.
Next week, right? And this is on how to build a customer lifecycle that maximizes CLTV. So this is on Thursday, March 17th. We've got some great panelists, and we'll be you can sign up for that on the OpFocus site on events. I've got 2 training classes coming up. We just went through the same 2 back in February and March. So 5-day Salesforce admin class that I teach June 13th through the 17th, and also a 2-day reporting workshop the 27th and 28th of June. That'll be right after the next release, the summer release. So we've got on March 23rd, a session on formulas for Service Cloud reporting. That'll be hands-on, so you can register for that. We've got April 6th, spring cleaning, decluttering your reports and dashboards tabs. And I thought, and these haven't been added to the Dōjō site yet, but I thought to lay out 3 more dates through the spring on Sales Cloud reporting, Service Cloud reporting, to go deeper. And you'll be able to register for those at dashboarddojo.com. All right, so we didn't have a lot of questions today, Kyle. Does anybody want to throw out any questions? I'm sure some of you had some reasons to for joining the session today. What questions do we have? So Chris, thank you for the comments there. You're implementing Service Cloud right now. I'm glad that was helpful to you. And John Say, thank you for your note there. I'm curious how people are using this, what challenges you have. So not everybody uses Service Cloud. It is baked into Salesforce, been part of Salesforce for many, many years. In fact, way back when it was branded differently, and we had, I remember a client in New York City that was confused. We said, do you have, let's talk about your Salesforce instance. And they said, we don't have Salesforce. This was the support team. I forget what it was branded at the time. It might've been Support Force. And they're like, no, we have Support Force. And I'm like, well, that's actually Salesforce. And it was just, that was what it was branded all those years ago. And that's what they thought that they had bought. All right, well, we'll get these additional dates up on the Dōjō site so that you can register for them. I do hope you join us on March 23rd for a session on formulas for Service Cloud reporting. And then on May 11th, we'll revisit Service Cloud reporting one more time. So I should have thought more about this and just pre-built 2 sessions, just knowing that there's so much to talk about. So glad that you all joined us today, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Of course. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, great to see you, Leanne. Bye-bye.